The sun was a distant memory. Here, deep in the forests of the Pacific Northwest, the tall pine trees were like giants. They stood close together, their branches creating a dark roof over my head. The air was cold and damp. It smelled of wet earth, pine needles. I walked slowly, my boots crunching softly on the fallen leaves. Every step echoed in the silence. This forest was old, very old. You could feel it. The kind of place where stories are born, where the line between what is real and what is legend gets very thin. I had come here for a reason. But now, a strange feeling was creeping into my stomach. It was a feeling of being watched. The forest was not just quiet, it was unnaturally still. I gripped my backpack strap, told myself to be rational. But the further I went, the more unwelcome I felt. My name is Mark, and I'm a hunter. But my prey isn't something I track with a rifle. I hunt with a lens. I'm a wildlife photographer. The thrill for me isn't the kill, but the connection. My trophies are the fleeting moments I capture on camera, a silent understanding that passes between me and the wild. It's a story told in a single, perfect frame. I come to these remote places to find animals in their natural homes, to see them living their lives undisturbed. It's a privilege, a chance to step back in time and see the world as it was meant to be. The patience required is immense. I've spent weeks tracking wolves and countless hours waiting for a bear to emerge from its den. I love the solitude. It's more than just escaping the city. It's about becoming part of the landscape itself, shedding the person you are back there, and just listening. This trip was for the Stygian owl, a creature so rare it's almost mythical, known to live only in this ancient forest. I planned for months, studying maps and old field reports. Every piece of gear was chosen with meticulous care, packed to be both lightweight and utterly reliable. My camera is my primary tool. But on this trip, I brought a small video camera. It was a last-minute decision, a gut feeling I couldn't shake, just in case a still photograph couldn't capture the whole story. For 2 days, everything was normal. I saw deer, raccoons, and at dusk, I even heard the faint, haunting call of the owl. It was promising. But on the morning of the third day, the peace shattered. Not with a sound, but with the absence of it. The forest, which had been a symphony of life, fell utterly silent. The bird song, the chittering of squirrels, the hum of insects, all of it just vanished. The air grew heavy, and the trees seemed to close in. I waited for hours. Nothing came. It was a profound, unnatural stillness. It was as if a warning had gone out, a silent alarm broadcast on a frequency only the animals could hear. They had all gone to ground, hiding from something they knew was coming. I pushed deeper to find a new spot, but the feeling of being watched grew stronger with every step. A prickling on the back of my neck. I've been stalked by mountain lions. I know that feeling. This was different. It wasn't the simple assessment of a predator. This felt intelligent, calculating. It was something else, bigger, and far, far stranger. The woods had felt different all afternoon. The usual chatter of squirrels and birds was gone, replaced by a heavy, watchful silence. I'd been hunting these parts for years, but something felt off. I chalked it up to the changing light, the way the forest transforms as day bleeds into night. But a deep, primal part of my brain was on high alert. Then came the first real sign that my unease was justified. It wasn't something I saw, but a sound. It was a sharp, explosive crack that didn't just shatter the silence, it tore through it. The sound was so violent, so out of place, that it felt like a physical blow. It wasn't the gentle creak of an old tree settling. It sounded exactly like a green living tree trunk, thick as my thigh, being snapped clean in two. The sheer force required for that kind of break is immense. My training took over. I froze, every muscle tensed. My hand instinctively went to the canister of bear spray on my belt. My mind raced through the possibilities. A bear? Maybe, but they usually make a racket, crashing through the underbrush. This was different. The sound was singular, isolated, maybe 50 yards off the trail. It felt less like an animal moving through its environment, and more like a statement, a territorial warning. It felt powerful, deliberate. I ducked behind a fallen log, trying to make myself as small as possible, my eyes straining to pierce the deepening shadows. I scanned the dense wall of trees, expecting to see a hulking shape, to hear the crash of it moving away. But there was nothing. No follow-up sound, no rustle of leaves, no snapping twigs. The forest didn't just go quiet. It felt like it was holding its breath. The silence was now more unnerving than the sound that had caused it. What could do that? And leave no trace? With the sun gone and true dusk settling in, my nerve finally broke. I started back toward the relative safety of my camp. Every step felt amplified on the dry leaves. I walked fast, my head on a swivel, my flashlight beam slicing nervously through the oppressive dark. The feeling of being watched was no longer a vague premonition. It was a physical sensation, a cold weight pressing on the back of my neck. I could feel eyes on me from the impenetrable blackness just beyond the reach of my light, and that's when the second sound started. It was a low, resonant moan that seemed to emanate from the very ground beneath my feet, from the air all around me. It was everywhere and nowhere at once. My blood ran cold. I'm a woodsman. I know the call of a wolf, the yip and cry of a coyote pack. This was none of those. This was a long, mournful call, impossibly deep and guttural. It was a sound of profound loneliness, yet also of immense power. I could feel the vibrations of it in my chest, a bass note that resonated with some ancient, forgotten fear. The moan rose in pitch and volume, holding for what felt like an eternity before it abruptly stopped. I stood frozen, my heart hammering against my ribs. Then, from another direction, to my left and slightly behind me, came an answer. A second call, just as deep, just as powerful. A call and response. They were communicating, at least two of them. My flashlight beam whipped back and forth between the two unseen sources. I wasn't just near them, I was caught between them. I made it back to camp, heart hammering. I didn't start a fire. I listened to the silence. Morning brought a little courage. I decided to leave. I needed to cross a small creek to reach the trail. That's when I saw them. A line of footprints. Huge. 16 inches at least. 5 distinct toes. Human-like, but flatter. More primitive. Pressed deep into the mud. The stride. 6 to 7 feet. My size 11 looked like a child's shoe inside it. The snapped branch. The howls. And now these. The stories. Could they be real? My plan to leave vanished. I had to know more. I followed the tracks into denser, older forest. Up a steep ridge, losing and refinding the trail over rock. A hidden valley, almost impossible to stumble upon. And in the middle, something moved. Larger than a bear, walking on 2 legs. My heart leaped. I ducked, hands trembling for the camera. It started with a sound I couldn't place. A heavy, deliberate snap of a branch that echoed with unnatural weight. A primal instinct screamed at me to stay hidden, but another part of me, the part that had dragged me out to these remote woods for years, took over. My hands were shaking, but I forced myself calm. My fingers, clumsy with adrenaline, found the button. I switched to video and hit record. Through the lens, the world compressed into a single, shaky frame. The forest fell away, and there was only the clearing, and the figure moving among the trees. It walked with a powerful, fluid gait I'd only ever seen in grainy internet videos. It stopped, turning its massive head to survey its territory with an unnerving confidence, a sense of absolute belonging. It was calm, completely unaware of my intrusion. It stooped, its long arms reaching down to the forest floor, and picked something up. I zoomed in, the image pixelating, but I could see it turning the object over in its hands. Foraging. The sheer scale of it was hard to process. It towered over the young pines, its shoulders as broad as a doorway. This wasn't a man in a suit. The raw power in its frame was undeniable. Time seemed to stretch as I kept the camera steady, my arms burning. I was documenting the impossible. Then it happened. Maybe the sun glinted off the lens. It froze mid-stride and slowly turned its head, looking directly up the ridge. Directly at me. Its entire posture changed in an instant. The calm animal was gone. Now it was alert, wary. It knew. A low, guttural growl rolled up the ridge. It wasn't just a sound. I felt it in my chest, a deep vibration that seemed to shake the very ground. It held my gaze for one more heart-stopping second, its face an unreadable mask of shadow. Then, with a speed that defied its massive size, it turned and melted back into the dense forest. It just vanished. I kept recording the empty space, the silence more terrifying than the growl, until I could finally hit stop. Back home, watching the footage, the details were undeniable. 7, maybe 8 feet tall. Thick, dark hair, longer than a bear's. The arms were long, the stride fluid and eerily human-like. I paused on a frame of its head in profile. A large, conical skull sloping from a heavy brow ridge. Not an ape, not a human, something in between. I packed the camera like a treasure and ran, fueled by a primal mix of fear and awe. Every shadow was a threat, every snapped twig a jolt of panic. Now, a week later, back in the city, I still hear that growl in the quiet moments. I've watched the video 100 times, maybe more. Each viewing is the same, a jolt of fear, a wave of awe, and the crushing weight of an impossible secret.